Hello, in this video I'm going to be covering a book called Atomic Habits, and this is a book that's made a huge difference in my life. Ever since I've read it, I feel like my efficiency has probably doubled or tripled at least. And so the idea in this book, really to summarize it in one sentence, is you're not going to get somewhere by making huge leaps forward. You're going to get there by getting 1% better every single day. So I feel like this book has made a huge difference on the way I live my life because honestly, because of the way that I set goals and my kind of fiery personality. Like, I set these massive goals that are just really hard to achieve, and they're so intimidating that I don't even want to get started in the first place. Like, if you think about high school or, just writing an essay or something like that, you don't ever want to write an essay unless you're the type of person that likes that. But it's really hard to just say, okay, I'm going to write this essay tonight. It's such a big job, and it's something that you aren't actually wanting to do. It's not easy. It's not attractive. It's not something that's going to really entice you, get you to start. And so if you instead focused on separating it into smaller tasks and you made it more attractive, you made it easier to do, then that would be the way to make it happen. Okay, so the first thing you have to understand is how a habit works. Now, habits can be broken down into 4 phases according to this book. You have the cue, you have the craving, the response, and then the reward. So if you think about the cue, what's going to kind of be that initial cue that's going to get you started on that goal? So maybe if you wanted to read, the cue would be seeing the book. That's kind of the cue. Oh, I'm supposed to read, right? And then you kind of have a craving. So it's not going to be easy for you to pick up the book if you really don't want to read it in the first place. You kind of have to associate that book with some sort of craving. And whether it's actually craving wanting to read the book or associating it with something else. Like, if I start reading this book, I get to also have coffee. And I love coffee. So there you go. That's kind of the craving that's going to get me to get going. Okay, so the third step is response. Think about this as the actual action that you're trying to accomplish. So when you really do pick up that book and start reading, how much friction are you associating with reading the book? Are you miserable during it? What kind of emotions are coming up when you're reading that book? Because the more engaged you are with it and the more accepting you are of reading the book and the more excited you are to actually read it, the easier it is for you to pick it up the next time. Okay, so the last phase is reward. And I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory, but what are you actually going to reward yourself physically or mentally by completing that habit? And I think I found a perfect example of, this reward being used in real life. So I was trying to get my sister to read this book, and we ended up putting money in the different, chapters, and that's kind of like the reward. So you get to this certain benchmark, oh, you get a few dollars, And this is just one live example of how to reward yourself by taking certain actions. Okay, so now that you understand the phases of habits and, the cue, craving, response, reward, we're going to move into how to build better habits in 4 simple steps. Okay, so the first step is make it obvious. And by the way, these steps are kind of associated with the phases of habits. So make it obvious is associated with the cue. What are you going to do so that you could start this whole, process? Because if you have the cue and then the craving, the response, the reward, what are you going to do to start out making the cue so obvious that you can't forget to do it? And one example of this is by, say that you're, reading again. I just like to use this example because it's simple. You want to have your book somewhere where it's easily accessible. You could see it. Because if your book is tucked away somewhere, or maybe it's an audio book, you're not actually physically seeing the book and being reminded that this is what you're supposed to do. So you need to see the book, you need to see the habit in order to be reminded that it exists. Okay, so the second step is called make it attractive. And this is associated with the craving. So what can you do to kind of get yourself going when it comes to a workout? So, one example of this could be when you start your workout, you get to start drinking a protein shake. And if you really like that protein shake in a way that it's going to be kind of pulling you towards a workout, like, ooh, I could go for a protein shake, and you associate the protein shake with the workout. It's called habit stacking. It's another strategy that they talk about a lot in this book. But you're going to want to kind of associate things that you like with things that you're trying to start your new habits with. Now, I hope that makes sense. I'm kind of blowing through this because I don't want this video to take forever, and you'd be way better off by just actually reading the book, but I understand not everybody wants to do that. So it takes a certain level of drive and discipline to do that type of thing. But that's what I'm making this video for. And by the way, if you're getting any value out of this video, then please go ahead and give me a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing more book reviews, and then on top of that, I run a web design agency. So if you're interested in that type of thing, online businesses and web design, then go ahead and subscribe for more content just like this. Okay, so the third step is called Make It Easy. And the line I really liked from this chapter was called Walk Slowly but Never Backwards. And when I think about my life, like I said, I set these massive goals, and I really am just tempted to kind of jump ahead a year. Like, let me just start working out 2 hours a day, and then you actually kind of overwork yourself really quick and you burn out, and then you end up just walking backwards. And so when I read this, it kind of changed the way I think about things. I don't want to set goals that I can't actually do. I want to set goals that are maybe just a couple percent out of my capability, try to push myself just a little bit each day. And, when it comes to trying to do certain things, like I hated reading a couple of years ago, but when I started kind of implementing these habits, like just reading a few pages a day, or maybe just working out for a couple minutes a day, these are like the biggest things that you could possibly do, because it's going to start forming that habit. Even if it's only a couple minutes, it's going to develop into a lot more over time. Okay, and the fourth step is make it satisfying. So this is associated with the reward when it comes to building a habit. And one line I really like is, the vital thing about getting into a habit is to feel successful even if it's only in a small way. So one example that I really liked when they were talking about this was an example about saving money. So if you're trying to save money, there's not really any instant gratification by not buying a coffee. Like, I could either buy a coffee and have that immediate reward of, oh, this coffee is really good, I'm addicted to caffeine, so there you go. Cue craving response reward. It's that simple. But instead, if you're trying to implement a habit like saving more money, you have to give yourself some instant gratification by saving money. So one example of this would be, every time that you decide not to buy a coffee, you go and you move that money into a savings account, and you can start to see that that savings account is adding up. There's a lot more money moving into the savings account, and each time that you decide not to buy the coffee, you're getting some instant gratification. And this is really important. You can apply this to a lot of different other habits you're trying to start, because if there's no instant gratification associated with a habit, I think it's a lot less likely that you're going to pick it up in the first place. And so I hope this is all making sense. I mean, this made a lot of sense to me, but maybe the book does a better job explaining it than I do. Anyways, that just about wraps up my video. I tried to cover, the most basic description of this book. There's so much more that I didn't get to hit on because I didn't want to make like an hour-long book review video. I didn't think anybody would watch it, but if you do want that, let me know. I'm going to cover a few more books, like The Third Door, The 80-20 Principle, and so if you're interested in seeing more book reviews and then just learning more about my online businesses, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like this video if you don't mind. So with all that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.